Do we want to open the, pull everyone off mute? How do we handle this for the open session? This is the first time we've ever done it. Any ideas?
Yeah, I can unmute everybody, and if you've got a question, or you can type your question in. Everyone's unmuted. They just have to unmute themselves individually. If you've got a question or want to, Lynn says, leave her on mute. Okay, I'll put you back on mute, Lynn.
Don't take yourself off mute if you don't want to hop in, but go ahead and definitely take yourself off mute. Join into the conversation.
Okay, is anybody, it's open floor for questions. Dun, 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 dun.
John Myers made a couple comments in chat that it seems like Epicor is moving towards functions to take over inform coding based on the Application Studio presentation that was out there. To some degree, if you look at the functions presentation or the demo video, pay attention to the last 5 seconds of it, because functions can also be turned around and written so that you end up getting code from, or you get the function from a person. They still have the rights to that function. You need to get an updated file from them all the time unless you have your own code for it. So we generally recommend people make sure that you have all source code with functions so that you're not tethered to whoever wrote that function for you. John Myers also had a question: how do we fight against the resistance to change?
A firm hand, smack them upside the head.
Yeah. Show them the door. No.
You just got to figure out what works for some people. Do you just need to walk them through by hand? Do they absorb it themselves? What is it that's making them adverse to the change, and find a way to break that barrier down? It can be different for different people. We've run into people that hadn't used a mouse ever in their life. Yeah. So using Epicor was scary just because they're like, what do I do with this? I don't know what this does. Once you walk it through, then you make it a more comfortable situation for them. It's almost like being a psychologist or psychiatrist, helping them get over that fear and getting them used to it.
Yeah. Scott Lepley is saying, use a Louisville Slugger.
Yeah, particularly for manufacturing. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I think a good thing is to show them the benefit of change. Show them why the change is benefiting them. What could do to them? How can it improve their situation? Instead of saying, I have a change for you. You need to do this change. Or you need to change your process.
Ultimately, it's about the business. It's not even about me or a person. It's about the business, and what we always discovered is you go to the old ERP system, like some old ERPs, they don't really have the good KPIs to make business decisions because they do the shortcuts. But once you do use Epicor and actually keep up to date, and you clean your data, enter data as needed, you get good KPIs eventually, and better visibility, and I guess, yeah, explain the why. I guess it's really always about the why.
Reason I asked that question is because a lot of the what I'll call change inertia that I see is because people were trained a specific way, and we've always done it that way. Why do we need to do it differently? And fighting that battle. I've got a question I put up a couple of times here concerning coparts. If anyone has dealt with them, we're just
What's
getting
your problem.
Well,
bring it on, Simon. What's the question with coparts?
Okay, if I have a primary and 3 coparts, parts A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
And I have demands for one of the components that comes out of that primary part. Do I have to have the other parts that are co-parts to that component on that co-part or listed on that co-part for MRP to create a suggestion to create that component?
You would have to have the top level item, not just, so if you get a demand for level D, for part D that's within that co-part nest,
Right.
you're not going to see an MRP demand to go release part 1, 2, 3, 4, which is comprised of A, B, C, and D for co-parts.
Okay.
Going to need to be up on the parent, or you'll see that in the shortage where D is going negative. You need to look where that co-part is to make sure that you create a job for that parent item that creates all those co-parts.
Okay, well, that's what I mean. So if I have demand for part B, then I need to have part A on the co-part list of part B as well for it to generate demand, or I mean for it to generate a job suggestion for part A.
Yep, or I've recommended go ahead and set up a co-part for each of them where part A is the primary, part B is the primary that calls A, C, and D, and then C calls A, B, and D.
Okay, so basically cross-reference the other co-parts.
Kind of a cross-reference, right.
Okay, okay.
And then if any of them show up to MRP, it'll go ahead and pull in for its thinking, oh, you're running part C, we have a shortage, so go make A, B, and D with it. And it'll make a job then for C.
Okay, okay, yeah. The other
Setting up the factors is going to be a tricky part.
Yeah. The other question regards costing. We use standard costing and we do cost rolls. We are going to, we're going to use the cost factors for material and labor on the co-parts. From what I understand, cost roll will not roll costs for a part if it does not have an approved method on it.
But by having the cross-reference parts, you'd have an approved method for them all, wouldn't you?
That's what I had a question about. Do you have to have a method on all those co-parts and have it approved for cost roll to roll costs on those, or can you just have an approved method on the primary and have it roll costs and then on the primary, and then the cost factors take care of divvying up the cost in the job for the other component parts?
We've had to set them up for the component parts so that when you do the one roll, each part will have a cost roll, but they would be the same, but you have to adjust those factors so that, okay, if I'm making part B now and it's set, it's going to have a different factor for A, C, and D.
Okay.
But the cost roll should be the same for each of them when it rolls.
Okay. The cost factors, how would they have to differ from like the primary?
When you set up your ratios, which one is the primary out of the, like if you're cutting out of a sheet of material,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get so many of this, so many of this, and so many of these. Well, if I look at it from the other perspective, they're still going to be the same numbers, but now you didn't have A set up before as a factor because it wasn't listed as a co-part. Now it is listed as a co-part.
Okay. Okay, because the way
So
we're
your
setting up,
Rev for B would reference A, C, and D as co-parts. Your
Correct.
Rev A is going to show B, C, and D as coparts. Factors. It's going to be the same factors when you roll them across all four,
Okay.
but respective to which one's the parent.
Yeah. Okay. Part A would be the parent part. Then B, C, and D comes out of that particular part out of the material. So the way we have the cost factor set up right now is basically like a percentage. If you take all of the cost factors and add them up, it comes up to 100. So say very first part is 50%, material and labor is 50% of all of the coparts in total. Then if part B is the primary, or if part B is the primary and has the other parts listed as a copart, don't those percentages stay the same?
They should stay the same, yes.
Okay, it's just a question of arrangement, basically. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I got it.
And when you go to report labor or quantities, you have to go to the copart tab and put the quantity in for each one that came.
Correct. Yeah, I understand that. What else we're going to be dealing with is we print material tags when we do end activity in MES, but actually we have what we call a move ticket report that gets generated. The problem is right now it's not set up for coparts, and I've got to make changes to that form to be able to list out all the coparts and stuff on separate move tickets. So I've got to delve into that yet. But that provides a lot of help for, and it tells me we're actually on the right track of how we have things set up. So I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesome. And there's also, if you make, generally what I'll tell people is like, you get these coparts, and I'm supposed to get 2 of A, 2 of B, and 2 of C out of this every time. When you report your quantity, put those in, but if I made a bad B, like one part of the B's was bad, go ahead and do a non-conformance, manual non-conformance for it. Don't try and report it with the labor activity. So trying to report scrap while you're reporting quantities of coparts, it's easier and safer just to report all good parts came off and then non-conform it from inventory or from the process afterwards.
Okay, yeah, that's one of the things that another person in the user group said, that they have to report everything basically as if all the parts are good, and then turn around and do a non-conformance out of inventory for the bad part. So, okay, got it.
Okay, it looks like we have a question from Marta. Have you had any luck when print routing using APR to format the text in HTML? For example, if I'm emailing an invoice to a customer, previously in APM, the text in the email would take HTML commands to change the font.
Yeah, so in the email widget, even though there's no, I don't know if they added it, but as long as you start, if I remember correctly, you started with an HTML tag, it will automatically convert your body to is HTML to true, and then you can send colors and so on. There's a forum post, if I remember, email widget.
I don't think that for print routing that works. I believe in 600, they may have added the support for it, but up until recently, I know there wasn't support for that on the print routing side of things. I think in the BPM, yes, you are correct. In BPM emails and stuff, you can do it, but I'm pretty sure that they added that in 600 for routing.
Okay.
Okay, maybe that's where I got confused. I know in one version they added now a drop down that says email format, and you can pick HTML or text, plain text.
Okay. And then from Scott, have any participants modified the reminder letter functionality to allow emailing rather than printing and snail mailing? Anyone modified reminder letters?
I mean,
That
I think
would
you
be
can do that
like
through print
customer
routing.
statements.
Yeah, the reminder letter, I think you can do that through print routing the same way you would do any other report, right?
I would think
Yeah.
so.
Customer statements, customer invoices. This would all
Overdue.
go through
could.
print routing.
You could do that, Jose, except that the standard data set doesn't have the email address and so forth that you would want.
You would
Like
have to
you would
modify
with
the
the AR invoices and AR statements. So you have to go through the process of modifying the RDD and
Yep.
potentially
Yep.
your report style and so on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just check, please, on go back to Marco's question. There is a drop down for email format, plain text and HTML.
Excellent. And I think
I
that,
guess maybe the whole reminder letter. I think what we did is in let's say we do ACH remittance emails, right? Because and we did, I think, on when you print a remittance advice. So we did on the supplier you can have contacts, and then we basically said we're going to create a contact, and his role will be ACH notification. So maybe you can apply something like that to reminder letters. You know, you create a contact, and you just create a role called, you know, late charges notification or something like that. And then in APR, then you can kind of use that. You don't have to kind of go through the whole RDD and you know, emailing it then. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
I think I can understand where you're headed. So
So
you
you
won't
still-
need
What?
to try to specifically identify the contact that was tied to the original invoice or even to the customer's account. You could just you could focus more on that role for the customer.
yeah, and then you can easily find for this customer, there's got to be a contact with a role called late invoices or something, or a notification role. So it's not a real person. It's just you create a fake contact just so you can always use that as here's where all the late notifications go to. And if it doesn't exist, you don't send an email.
Right. Okay.
And I can send you screenshots if you email Kelvin your email address.
okay. Any other questions or feedback or thoughts? This is open session, open season.
Are they able actually to come on mic?
Yep.
Yeah, they
we'll
should
keep
be able-
everybody off mute.
I wonder if Heather Hahn is on. She had a lot of questions.
Heather Hahn is on twice.
Twice.
Twice. There's two of them. Nice. This is not so much an epic question,
Hi guys.
but
Hey, Heather.
I'm echoing because of my two devices.
Oh,
How are you?
Hey,
Great
Heather.
presentations, you guys. Thanks for everything.
by the way, Kelvin, some of the questions initially, Fred, that I sent you for Stump the Chump, they actually came from Heather. That's
Awesome.
I just forwarded them.
So I called her community when I sent it back
Yeah.
out to everybody. Awesome.
I felt bad. It's like Hasso has a question for Hasso. It's like, no.
Oh no, from Hasso's list. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyone run into any other problems? Oh, here we go from Prabin. Do you foresee any issues with updating territories of a bunch of customers via DMT?
Yes.
Discuss.
Come on, what do you expect me to say? Yes, I would definitely expect a handful of issues. If you don't run the update territories or reassign function from the workforce screen, you're not going to update sales orders and transactions that are out in process. It'll only update new ones going in. You want to make sure you update the ones that are out there as well if you're going to change who's going to be responsible for that territory.
Okay.
So there's a reassign function that's on the workforce screen. You can update it via the DMT, but it's not going to update your other stuff. The reassign function will not only change it, but it'll go out and fix the records that are in the pipeline.
All right, we got that one out.
But it's good to know, Jose, I can make you still fall out of your chair. That was awesome.
So, Kelvin, what do you think? Will there be an Insights next year?
I hope so. I mean, I still like networking. I still like getting questions answered and walking around with the Epicor and talking to the Epicor people. And just connecting with people face to face and sharing a beer or something. I'm like, you still, yes, we have that. We have the technology exchange. We have the networking going on in the virtual meetings, but I think it's still good to have the face to face and the open dialogue where you can let the session just go. It's nice to get the Epicor people to come in, but you still don't have the developers or the sales engineers that are out in the field. Hey, how did you handle this with this person? I actually ran across my very first Epicor consultant that has done more than 10 companies in one structure, because we ran across a customer that has over 100 companies. How do you handle that multi-company process? The server can't do it as quick. So it was nice to actually get that dialogue. That's normally what I look for when I'm down at Insights.
I see. And how much more time do we have?
Oh, about half an hour.
Oh,
Enough time to put a pool together to contribute to buying Jose another sock.
what?
There's a story with that sock, but let's just say that I have 3 children at home for the last, I don't know, 8 years. It feels like, I think at least 3 months, but it feels like 8 years. So I, if I don't lose a sock one day, I lose my mind. So it's fine. Anybody want children? I'm got 2 for 1 special.
I got 4 for 1.
I have employees. I don't need children.
At this point, I think I'll take employees. Yeah, a little while ago when I was making all that racket, it's because one of them barged into my office in the middle of my phone call to, see what I was making for dinner. Trying to work here, but okay. Let's
So
worry about what kind of chicken.
We're all coming over.
Right? Yeah. What am I having for dinner? I'm actually kind of curious.
chef.
How many? There's like what, 60-ish people in the call, maybe a little more. How many people are back at the office full time yet? Just curious.
Well, hey.
I mean,
I
you don't
raised my
count,
hand.
Calvin. That's just you.
Let me see if I can turn that into a poll, Jose.
Oh, there we go. That would be nice.
Let me see here.
Some of us
Poll.
are manufacturing companies, so we had to keep going into work.
Sure.
Hard to
Yeah,
manufacture from home.
Oh, come on. We got robots now. It's fine. We had to
Not
go
good enough.
paper. We had to go paperless in a week. We had to go paperless in a week after 30 years of having a paper-based process. So that was fun.
There you go.
How do you answer when you're both? I'm not in the office of the manufacturing. All of our manufacturing.
Where's the
Well,
poll?
half and
You need an option for working remotely.
Yeah, half and half.
So you asked if you were about
Versus
not
not working.
ask if the company is, they have people going into the office, I think.
Well, yeah, most companies have some people. I'm just curious if, out of our audience here, how many people are actually going to the office or not.
I got about half people voted so far, overwhelming yes.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Oh, it's dropping.
It's dropping.
The others just woke up from home.
Yeah, they gotta quit watching the soap opera.
So Calvin, question now, like for example, at Quota Bears, are you guys gonna continue the flexibility of, hey, you can come into the office or you can work remote, or what is your forward?
Actually, we have a hybrid of both, but the way our office is laid out and very spaced, nobody's really on top of each other, so we still come here.
Yep.
But we have some people, if they come in contact or, hey, they went and traveled outside of the area, then okay, quarantine for the 7 to 10 days, whatever the state's requiring. They seem to be vacillating between them, but otherwise come in. We actually have little to-go bags at Quota Bears that, okay, you're quarantined, so you need a docking station, you need a cable, you need a power supply and a monitor. Okay, here's your little kit to go home.
Yeah. I guess what I'm more curious is that companies had some companies never really encouraged work from home, and COVID made them. And now when COVID goes away, when do you think they're gonna kind of stay? Like, oh, let's keep going. I mean, how about maybe some companies will say, okay, you can work 1 day a week remote. Just it's a little bit easier, or get a little bit more of the maybe your work done. You don't have to commute, etc. What do you think companies will continue that trend of allowing that flexibility? Because I come from automotive. You say remote, they're like, what? You work here. You have to be here. You must be at your cubicles. That's the mindset for years. If you're not at work, you're not working.
I see the future that people are going to be offering hybrids of both.
Yeah. Okay.
It's also a reduction on cost. How much office space do I need if I can have a person that actually works effectively from home?
Yeah.
I remember when I got hired at Stephen Gold, that was the first remote employee they had ever had. And during the interview process and stuff like that, one of the things they said, well, we have concerns because we don't actually have a remote worker policy. So we don't know if we can do this. And then somebody was like, well, we'll just make one. Let's just make one. Like, it's fine. But that was one of the biggest issues to getting hired at Stephen Gold, was because they
many
never
places. Many places
had remote work policy, and I was like, I'm not moving to New Jersey. And so they made it with me, and now thankfully that I've been working there for over a year, they've gotten used to it, and so now we are actually able to bring in, Brandon, who's also more people, because the Epic world is small, and if you want to bring in talent, it's kind of hard to ask people to uproot their entire life.
Yeah. Like move to Iowa. It's like, no.
Yeah. Right.
Come to the windstorms.
But no, I definitely see a hybrid of both existing. I mean, some positions you need to have the collaborate, you need to have the face-to-face. Other people can do it through Teams and share their screens together.
Yep. I think it needs to be a case-by-case basis.
I think some of it's generational too. I mean, this is Mark Obrantz, I'm an old guy who's 53, and I would equate this to a little bit of what Calvin alluded to with insights. I like seeing people face to face, asking a question, see their response face to face. But also, I think there's a lot that happens. The old, water cooler, walking by someone's cube. You hear two people talking about, as an owner, I hear two people talking about something, and I happen to walk by and I hear it, and I'm like, I really should be aware of this. What are you guys actually doing about this? You don't get that when it's so selective on Teams and only at prescribed times. But there's clearly a shift taking place in this. And again, some of it might be generational. Maybe the 20-something, 30-somethings that are more accustomed to texting and short conversations are more adept at that and more comfortable with that. But I do think there is a loss when it's all done purely over an internet connection. I think, we're still people who like to see other people, people's kids, see the human side of people,
Yeah.
You need to have the collaboration. We've kind of mandated it. Any consultant that's doing a remote session with a client must do it with video now.
Yeah.
I think it brings the personal touch back into it and makes it, you're not just a voice over the phone.
But do like let's say talking about Epicor, do people actually collaborate? Like I mean, all the jobs I had, it's like, okay, here's the task. See you in a week, and you just go in your office and you don't like they don't like. There's no whiteboarding. I guess when we did ERP go lives, of course the ERP team, it depends, I guess, what your role is. You got to map out, do a mind map, and so on.
But with an ERP team, you need to be face to face because there's going to be 3 Angela Merkels in the go.
Angela Merkel?
If you don't see that, there's going to be a problem then.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've got to get the feedback from the other user.
I'm in the middle of a case right now. I sent an email, was sent for a MES project we're working on in Epicor on July 30th. I got that we were shutting down a piece of the data collection we use in our shop on July 30th. No responses. So I sent a follow-up email yesterday and said, okay, it's being shut down this Friday. And all of a sudden, all these responses come out. Well, this doesn't work. Nobody's been trained. I'm like, well, wait a minute. What happened to the last email that everybody ignored? Now, maybe that reflects on me as a manager more than the other situation. But again, there's no substitute, in my opinion, for the face-to-face and seeing the responses, the eye rolls, and that collaboration. So.
With other stuff right now, though, we can still get closer if you are remote. But I think it does require the video to be on, because otherwise you can't see the eye rolls, you can't see the questions on their faces.
Pete Masick has a question here. Are there any thoughts or ideas on making a code library where people can post customizations in code in full that other users can search, kind of get a full set of the code, not just like snippets out on Epi users, but where they can actually get full solutions? And actually, Pete, we tried doing that with the Midwest user group, and we got all of about 8 submissions over the year that we did that, but nothing ever more came in. And I hate to say it, 7 of them were from Coda Bears or Misha Services back then, and 1 was from a user. People just started sending that out there and saying, yeah, share this, because it also comes with the questions of,
you gotta support it.
Make this work. Exactly.
Yeah, support is a big issue. We try to do that in Epi users. I mean, we have a whole section dedicated specifically, it's called code sharing. And there's, I don't know, maybe 50 or so posts in there that people share their code and things like that. We also have a GitHub community page where people can publish GitHub projects publicly. And we have a few handful of them, but that's about it.
The problem I always have is I cannot give you the complete solution because my employer paid for it.
Right.
So I can give you a snippet. I think they kind of allow that, kind of like I'm just helping them, but I'm also benefiting from the community. But there's even been cases where someone has helped me in private, say, hey, I'll give you this dashboard, and I'll give them a complete dashboard. It took me 3 weeks to figure out. It's not a problem. I think like me just randomly going and uploading all this stuff, I don't know if some of the employers would like that. I think that's always my question. Is like, man, should I post? I'm even worried if our server name is in a screenshot. I'm like, oh, crop that out. Or I hide our part numbers and descriptions. I don't know. Someone could say, hey, you're revealing, our numbers.
Right. Yeah, I got into trouble with that about when I first started doing Epicor, and I started doing like little videos and little demo videos and stuff like that. And I remember one time I got called into the CEO's office because he found a YouTube video of me demonstrating
live streaming
something that I had done, and they're like, why are you demonstrating this stuff on YouTube without it's showing our information? And I was like, well, it was a generic part, nobody cares. But so you have to be careful with that. So it makes it really hard. And again, there's liability involved too. If you share a bunch of code and then somebody copies it and breaks their system, nobody wants to end up in court. So it's kind of iffy, but I agree that it would be nice if that such a solution existed.
Yeah.
I just don't know that between IP problems and
because sometimes I do, if I start a post and the community collaborates, okay, try this, try that, and then someone shares a mini BAQ, and when I'm done, I will share the final product because it wasn't really built by me. It was built by the community helping me,
Yeah.
So I think I guess it comes down to that, why, and no one goes home on Saturday and has their own Epic Core and says, so I'm just going to make some dashboards away from work, right? Because you don't have a license. If you had, then you could do that. Say, I didn't do this on work time. I didn't do this on your server. I didn't do this on your laptop. Then, so I think that's my concern always is legal. Lawyer.
Sounds like Mark's got some questions on Kinetic. And Amy said if there's stuff that we can't answer, we can forward over to her and she'll give us a shout. So Mark, you want to hit us up?
Well, I guess what I'm looking for is more Amy did a fine presentation, and has the safe harbor policy and the toe the company line. I guess I was looking for more real world experience, of what the people here are obviously on the leading edge, what you guys have seen or other users in the group have seen on Kinetic. We're 1 or 2 revs behind on the dot. We're on whatever 200 dot or 600.4 or something. So we are not looking at Kinetic yet, but it's going to affect us with all those customizations that we have. She mentioned years that Classic would be around. Is that 2? Is that 4? So any comments or thoughts?
I mean,
I would shoot probably 5 to 7 years. That's their normal rollout or phase out time. But I mean, they're still supporting Crystal.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought that was going to be gone in 2 years.
Yeah.
I think it all depends on adoption too. I mean, if everybody moves to Kinetic, I'm guessing that they would probably stop developing new stuff in Classic sooner than later. But it depends on adoption. If everybody doesn't adopt it, they can't really kill the product, right? So they have to keep maintaining it. I would imagine, like Calvin said, I would say minimum 5 to 10 years before you have to worry about there not being any support for the Classic menu.
I don't see them ever fully going away from the smart client and making a fully web enabled, but they do need to fix it because for the cloud people, now right now Kinetic in my book is slower than the smart client.
Yep.
They got to fix it.
What do you guys think of Kinetic that you've seen, and have you done much in the solution tool or the solution manager? Is that a derivative of like the Microsoft solution manager, or is it something else?
Was that my bestie Angela Merkel?
I was gonna say, I think most of us who have seen things are on their NDA, so we can't discuss much beyond what Amy said.
Okay.
Apologies.
Gotcha.
I think my biggest issue with Kinetic is the layout. It's not like high volume data entry. It's not there. Like
there's too many clicks.
Well, but they want to make for example, their UI looks good, right? You got this nice, beautiful text box. Most people are like, man, can you make the font? I just want to see all of them. Just make them as make a Craigslist style. I just got to enter my data because you don't want to tab 2 different things. And like most people just want to see one, like the Classic. Like they fit a lot of stuff in that little area, and maybe they have to kind of go to Salesforce and see how Salesforce, the CRM, lays out their forms because they just update and how, don't make it like I kept telling someone is they're trying to make it really beautiful, like for example like TurboTax and stuff. Those are real nice UIs, but again, we're not building a payroll we're not just building a web app. We're building it's just for an ERP system. This is a power tool. This is not just I just have a hard time with the UI because it's not condensed. It's just it's too fancy. And like the search, right? You bring up the search, like you see like eight results or 9. It's like, well, why can't you show me 20? Like, why do I have to scroll? Because the padding and the margins are too big because they want to make it beautiful, which I understand, but I have a hard time it's too slow for
To
Fred.
your comment,
You
Hasso, your
remember?
comment earlier. You don't design for the user, you design for the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the feedback they're getting about performance and data entry, they're working on improving those things for sure.
One of the things I saw.
Because that's a big issue. I mean, for us too. The first time I saw it, I was like, well, it's going to take me 8 times longer to enter an order now.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, part of the problem I see in it is that there are too few fields on there for people that go into a lot of different tabs in order entry, for example, that they're not going to use it because there's no room for a lot of the information that's there.
Yep. And from what I understood, it's going to be a grid system, so you cannot just take a text box and just make it pixel perfect, like put it right here. It's going to be, there's a grid. You got to, let's say, you know, like whatever the Twitter Bootstrap grids, for example, there's a grid. You can put 5 items per row and then just keep going. And that
isn't going to work.
That's the only adoption I have an issue with. Other than that, I can't, like, I think they're still rolling out the technology, so too early to tell on that, but just the UI.
Yeah, and that's the problem. The underlying technologies you have to conform to that, and if they're using Kendo or something like that to construct or do the rendering, it's not going to have, you know, you're going to be locked into that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience because outside of Kinetic, I am using a lot of Node and Angular and Kendo and things like that. I mean, the technology can support a more data-driven approach. I don't think that the technology is the issue. Some of it may be the implementation, and you know, they're learning too. But I think that from a technology perspective, you can accomplish something very close to what we have today in the client. It's just a question of is it going to be there by the time they go live? And you got to think about the fact that all the stuff that we're seeing is still in preview mode. They're still working on it.
Yep.
So some of this stuff they're actually, which is, you know, is one of the conversations that I've had with them is, you know, it's really nice that they're opening it up early so that we can give them all the criticism we could possibly do. And hopefully they take those criticisms and change the product for the better before they release it officially. So if you look at it in the demos and you look at it when Amy presents it and things like that, and you have concerns, definitely make them known, because from my experience, and we're part of the preview program, so I've seen a little bit more than some of you. You know, they are listening. So if you tell them this is not the way it should work, you know, and you make it known, they are listening and they're trying to make those changes to make sure that we end up with a better product.
Use your feedback button. It goes straight to them until they turn it off and they get flooded by too much.
Yes, they do use it, and I can tell you that when I got access to the preview, I went through and hit the feedback button a little too many times, and I may or may not have gotten a couple of emails from them saying, "Okay, we get it." So they are definitely listening. Do use your feedback button, and do take the time to test it in the real world scenario, because you know, the demos are cute, the demos are nice. But
we complained also about they're coming out with new kinetic forms, but the ones that they did in 10.2, 400, and 500 are still running the old kinetic that they built back then. They haven't gone back and updated the ones with the new kinetic technologies that they've been adding and improving. So this is going to be a tricky area of which version of the kinetic form is it?
Yep. And a lot of the changes that they would eventually have to make are significant enough that you can't retrofit them backwards. So, you know, it's one of the things that you're gonna, if you want to be on the latest and greatest of Kinetic, you're gonna have to be on the latest and greatest of whatever version of Epicor is, and that's kind of unrealistic. You know, you can't, when you're a big enough company, you can't upgrade two or three times a year to major versions. So it's gonna be a while. I'm not concerned with Kinetic making the classic Epicor go away anytime soon. I would say 5 to 10 years before you have to worry about it.
This is Mark Obrantz again. I feel a little foolish because when I first started Kinetic a couple of years ago and they were touting it so heavily, I actually had some projects for our company that we kind of slowed down and put on hold because I'm like, well, if they're going to change MES to Kinetic and our development will go down, you know, will be lost and wasted. And I'm happy to say that this spring we finally said we're not going to wait any longer, and we pulled the plug on that, and we're getting some customizations. We need an MES right away. So good to know I certainly agree now, as I've gathered more information from everybody, that they are. We've got years on this, so you don't want to necessarily, you got to keep your eye on the future, but you don't want to stop what you're doing now. You know, if we've already got customizations and things in the works, keep them building, and when the time is right. But we seem to have plenty of time, so thank you for that.
If anything, convert the customizations to go against the REST APIs. If you want to upgrade them and keep them more current, but I wouldn't necessarily say rush to the kinetic world, because a lot of the customization isn't there. When they say low code, they really mean it.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm removing in any new customizations, I'm removing as much code as I can from the UI. I'm going to basically almost exclusively functions and BAQs, because those are all server side. So if and when Kinetic gets here and the code is not available to me, I don't have to worry too much. So kind of move forward with that in mind. Remove as much custom logic from your UI, which you shouldn't have in your UI anyways. Your custom logic should always be on the server, because that way if you hit it from REST, or if you hit it for the screen, or if you hit it from a web service, it's all gonna go and process the same way. So move your logic to the server side, move your logic to functions and UBACs, and then don't worry too much about the actual UI changes, because in the end, if all your logic is server-based, then all you have to do is draw some buttons, and then everything is back the way it should have been.
Is BPM considered server-side as well?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So BPM, I understand. So so if you have, like, we do some checks for user and for order due date, and say, is it plus or minus 30 days from today?
Right.
We should
put that in the backend. Put that in a BPM.
It should be on a BPM, not a screen customization, which is how I believe our company might be doing it right now. That makes sense. Thank you for that. That's great insight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you can move everything. Yeah, exactly.
But then it doesn't matter where you update it. Updatable dashboard, DMT. You will prevent anyone from doing, making that mistake from changing the date too far out. So.
Okay, Mark, you were the last question that we had online. Anybody else got questions? Tam from Ticomet has already left, so I'll take her question on scheduling an MRP and go ahead and email her directly.
Because Fred, you remember a while ago you did the for a company, you did the dealer portal. Remember that site?
Yeah.
Made it pretty, and they're like, "Oh, I can't keep up. I need everything just high volume. Just give me a table." And they didn't use it because they like, I just need a grid. I don't have time to go submit and go back to beginning. Just simple stuff like that. It's sometimes we don't. Going back to the beginning, you sometimes don't know until you actually go on the floor and tell the user, "Show me how you're going to use this." It's like, "Oh, here's how we're going to."
We tried that, and marketing said it's got to look pretty. It's got to follow this. It's got to, and we're like, okay.
Yep. And sometimes it's not about the pretty. It's
about getting it done. All right. Any other questions?
Angelo has a question here. My company says E10 will do everything, include clean my car. Where do I find that function? It's not a function, Angelo. It's a button.
Yeah, it's a button. ABC code entry, I think. No, that's wrong one.
Yeah.
E10 can do everything.
Just I guess to that, just be careful. I guess depends who you can. I remember when we bought Epicor, they said everything is 2 clicks away. Like that was their like everything is 2 clicks away. Like for
But
automotive, because they said we're
Kinetic,
automotive
it's
ready.
all 20 clicks away.
Yeah. So, but
all right. Shall we call it there, or
do we have any surveys or polls that you still needed to send out there, Mr. Fred?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there will be a survey for those of you that are still on. You'll see it when you leave, and I believe it will also go out as an email tomorrow. and then it compiles up the answers so that we can get some feedback on how things went and what you're looking for in the future.
Awesome. John Myers also just sent a question out there. Has anyone written a BAQ to list all menu items enabled for a specific user? And I think, isn't that report out there?
There's
User access report.
Menu access report?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have not looked at that one.
In the security. And that I do like about the new Kinetic. At least it's all going to be BAQ based for the reports. So no more RDD hiding the data.
Yeah.
I do not see any.
It is called.
I don't wait for my epic core load.
Which version are you in? There should be menu security report under system setup, security.
Right, I got that.
Okay.
I got that. That report. What we really want to do is we want to get an Excel dump of all the menu items that somebody should have access to based on their security groups. And
then go to the menu security report and go to the filter and just pick that user.
No, yeah, done
that.
That
won't work for you?
Yeah, the format of the report just really sucks. To be perfectly honest. Yeah,
or take the SSRS report and modify it. I mean, it is still.
Yeah, that's about the only other thing I can think of. Yeah, okay. I was wondering if somebody might have developed a BIQ using CTE to walk down through the security settings. And, if they've already done something like that. But I might be able to do that with a report anyway. Okay.
Or throw a post out on the E10 help and see if anybody is willing to share a BAQ on that. I'm sure it's already been written.
I thought I saw one. I'm actually clicking here. Wait, I think someone created one. I can't. It's Jose needs to improve the search because there's no way to search for just post with attachments.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think there was. I think it was somebody wanted to. If you search for, I think it's called user security access for audit or something. Yeah, I found the post. I think. So I'll post it right here. I'll post it right. I think someone
say something Hasso and he pops back in.
Who does? Oh.
Say, boom, he's back in the dialogue.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was the kid.
Did you put that out on the user help group?
He sent it out through the chat to you. It's on the group.
So I think Fred will have to share it. So that's if you go to that post, I think it will. Someone has shared a few methods in there using BAQs. So someone shared 1 or 2 BAQs. I think you can find.
Okay. I will take a look at that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, we kind of are at a wrap today, Christine. How do you think it went?
I think we did good.
I think we improved the process.
I think we did good. Hopefully people liked it. I mean, we need everybody else to tell us how we did.
Awesome. And that they'll get when they we go ahead and close the meeting. Everybody should get a survey when they clock out, right? Or when they leave.
Yep. Supposedly.
So please take a moment to fill out the survey, give us some feedback, let us know what we can improve on, make the next meeting better. And I know we're still going to get together and hem-haw about how we do this and what the frequency is going to be and how we regulate these. But I think this went pretty well, and I like the reading the questions, making sure that we bring it out and throw it into the online recording as well, not just the chat window. Otherwise, you got to read all the chats with the video recording. But if we read them, that integrates it right into the recordings as well.
Now, we definitely want your feedback. Is it too much to do a whole day? Is it how to do half days, topic-wise?
Lunch break is what I would say.
What? Should we have eaten all day? What?
Well, you were ahead of us an hour, Jose or Jason, when you turned around and presented. So I'm like, this is awesome. He's presenting. I'll hide my video, mute my mic, and have my lunch.
The advantages of working on the East Coast.
Well, thank you to all of you for being here
Appreciate the
today.
invite.
I
Appreciate
would all,
it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
And what you
Thanks,
guys are not
everyone.
going to believe, I've obviously never presented before. So my first presentation was the row rules, and I was a little bit nervous. But I'm always on the forums for like 8 years, but I've never presented. So as we do more, get more comfortable. I always go to Jose. He's like, how should I do this? And he just teaches me a little bit. It's always critical though, because I put in the PowerPoint like 100 slides. It's like, what are you doing? 100 slides?
Way too many.
Okay.
well, I think
You only got 10 minutes, Hasso.
Yeah.
I'd like to say thanks to the presenter, Hazo and Jose, and and Calvin and Fred who put in all the work to do that. I guess Jason too. So thank you. 'Cause I know it takes time to put those together, and it's a lot of sharing that goes on. But thank you very much.
And if anyone hears from the EUG, like the only reason I kind of disappear from the EUG, it's every time I move companies, the account gets removed, and every time I have to chase someone who's, how can I make it on my personal account or just something that goes with me? If you're wondering, it's like, well, why you're never there? It's just every time, and plus my hyperlinks broke, other things. So it's somehow, I don't know, improve that process. And I think both,
They're looking
people
at,
ask me usually, well, who do you prefer, EUG or E10 Help? And I just say, well, they both have their benefits. We're not competitors, and there's no money in this. We're just, helping each other. It's just kind of hard to get onto the EUG, especially because it stays with the company. And then, or even if you move it to a new company, now I have to explain to my manager, remember you have a EUG login? Can you approve me? And she said, what's EUG? Because the managers don't use the thing. So anyways, that's the only feedback I have for.
they are looking for a new platform right now, also. So I know they're in the selection process. I know Keith and Marilyn and the team have been trying to find a new platform to do it. So hopefully that's one of the things that they put into it.
Yes. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. We'll go ahead and close the meeting here. Everybody gets their afternoon and evening back.
It's 5 o'clock. Yes. See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, you're an hour ahead.
Thanks, everyone.
You guys are done.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
See ya. Thank you.
Good.